I think I got lipstick on you. I'm sorry. Wow, right? Not a dry eye in the room. Yes, let's do it again, please. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding all of us of the practice. I believe that song and your rendition of it so perfectly encapsulates the mystics, right? That's the mystics. That we just get lost and know that that is exactly what we all are, getting lost in that love of the divine and being that for one another. So thank you for that. So beautiful. I have so much to share with y'all today, so let's hope I can get to it and not keep y'all all afternoon. First, I want to share that yesterday was our pet blessing. Those of you who came and brought your pets, thank you for doing that, because y'all know how much I love animals, and it gave me an opportunity to see and get to know your furry friends, and to bless them, because they are exactly love, right? And they came here to teach us that unconditional love. So I got to bless each and every one of them, spend time with them, and then kiss them on the nose, which I love to do. There was only one, I believe it was Ted, that I was told. Yeah, exactly. Chip and Michelle's like, don't kiss Ted on the nose. You don't know what Ted will do. Anyway, and then y'all asked about Toby, and man, had Toby been here, it would not have been good, because he is very possessive and protective of me. So it was just so fun. So thanks, you guys, for bringing your fur babies. I want to thank Terry Olson for inspiring me today. She remember how she likes to read bumper stickers, and bumper stickers inspire her spiritual life. So I appreciate that so much. And she reminded me, have y'all noticed all of the bumper stickers about Jesus? Have y'all ever noticed those? I read bumper stickers too. So there's one that says, oh gosh, I'll be here. That's what it is. It'll have a picture of Jesus and it says, I saw that. I know. Which the only piece I don't like about that is putting Jesus as this punisher, right? Which we know that he isn't. That's the assumption there. And then there's one that says, I like this one. It says, do you follow Jesus this closely? That's a good one, right? That's a really good one. But the one that Terry reminded me of that I saw was, OMG, guys, that is not what I said. Have y'all seen that one? OMG, guys, that is not what I said. I love that one, and I think that probably is the crux of what Eric Butterworth is saying, right? Is Jesus was not a condemning presence. Jesus was not about pointing people out and pointing out their sin, right? That is not who Jesus was. Jesus was, and what he says to us, our master teacher that taught love and forgiveness. Amen. Love and forgiveness. Jesus was here to feed, right? To feed people, to feed their souls, to feed their hunger, to give them food, to help them heal. That's our master teacher. That's our elder brother. And that is what Eric Butterworth is constantly inviting us into, to knowing that Jesus gave us a blueprint and we're here to live through that blueprint. So I want to, he understands that Jesus was not the exception. Jesus is not unique. Remember what Jesus said to us, John 14:12. I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same work I have done and even greater works because I am going to the Father. That means that each of us are able and capable when we live from the divine potential. That's the idea. Keep in mind when Jesus said to the woman who had been hemorrhaging, daughter, your faith has healed you. The idea is like, it isn't me that does this, but it is your belief in this and your practice that is healing you. So that's what we've signed up for, and knowing what Eric Butterworth means when he says the divine potential is within all of us. And by the way, we're almost to the end of this series. Reverend Vita closes it out next Sunday. So we're getting close. So that means that what we're doing today is we are going to the story of the Jesus event, which scholars will say that Jesus event, what they mean is Easter. So I get it's not Easter, but we're going to talk about that story because that story is also a part of his ministry. And then I want to review what we did last week, and that is last week. It's so important because remember how he fed the people with just meager loaves of bread and fishes, and the practice is so beautiful. He looked up to heaven and said, thank you, right? And it's not that he looked up to heaven. Eric Barber says he didn't look up to heaven and say, oh, it's up there, bring it down here, and I'm begging you to bring it down here. That wasn't the idea. The idea is saying, looking up and saying thank you. It's the idea of looking through those spiritual eyes of abundance. That was the idea behind that. And so that is the message today, through spiritual eyes. The practice is that we look through those spiritual eyes. So as always, I share with you guys an affirmation, and the affirmation is, I choose to see through spiritual eyes. I choose to see through spiritual eyes. I choose to see through spiritual eyes. Just imagine that, right? If each of us always chose to see through that life-giving force, through love, through peace. Just imagine what a different world, what a beautiful world where we will create. Because here's the thing, when we see through spiritual eyes, we acknowledge that we're not just going through life, right? But we're growing through life, right? Because have you ever noticed that when you're living a life pointing at somebody else, condemning somebody else, blaming somebody else, whatever it is, being angry about situations and challenges, have you ever noticed that you're just shrinking your own potential and power? Wow. And you're not seeing possibility and solution? You're just stuck in whatever that is. But when we see through spiritual eyes, we're seeing through possibility, abundance, all that is good. How about this? When we see through spiritual eyes, we know that we're not stuck in the finite, right? We're not stuck in the finite. We're not stuck in lack and limitation. Instead, we live, we move, we have our being in infinite potential, infinite possibility. That's the practice. That's beautiful. And then the other thing we can say is that when we see through spiritual eyes, here's a big one, we are not blocking our divine potential. We're not frustrating our divine potential. Rather, we're fulfilling divine power and purpose, right? Eric Butterworth talks about that, frustrating our potential. That sounds awful, doesn't it? Frustrating our divine potential. Thank you. It feels awful, and I have done it, and I still do it, and I don't like it because I don't feel good. So what my therapist says to me is self-discipline, right? Self-discipline. I choose to see through spiritual eyes. So this morning I want to share with you 2 points Butterworth asks us to ponder. He asks us to see Judas through a different light. I'm going to talk about Judas. I can't help myself. I didn't think I was going to cover it, but I think, oh my God, it's just so appropriate for this moment to look at Judas. Because I don't know about you guys, but I was raised in a tradition that blamed and condemned Judas. Here's the inheritance of that. If you're raised in a tradition that blames and condemns a person, then what are you going to do in your life? Think it's okay to blame and condemn. Isn't that huge? I was like, oh, I put it together, y'all. I did that. I put it together. I was so, it's like how about this? Was raised with this idea of blaming, condemning, judging, criticizing. Poor Judas. Really? Poor Judas. So that's what we're going to look at. Look at Judas through spiritual eyes, which is what Butterworth does. And then I want us to look at the Easter event. look at the crucifixion. But here's what Butterworth asks us to do. He asks us to put our eyes towards the resurrection, because it is in the resurrection that Jesus demonstrated. And that's the name of the chapter, the great demonstrated. He demonstrated the infinite. He demonstrated the overcoming. Isn't that beautiful? Of the overcoming of death to eternal life. Okay, so let's begin with Judas. He says, let's get this straight. Judas was one of Judas. That's a lot of J's, y'all. Judas was one of Jesus' closest friends. I'm sure y'all know that part. He believed in him. He saw great possibilities in him. He was personally selected because he thought he could be of great help to the cause. Remember the cause of letting people know that there's a freedom within them. That's what the great cause was. The cause of being a healing presence. The cause of helping people and not stopping to ask whether they deserved it, right? That's the cause. So Judas gave up everything to follow Jesus. And Butterworth writes that Judas probably had more to give up than the others. He was known to be sophisticated, intelligent. He was known to be somebody that had money. He wasn't like the other disciples that were probably living, what should I say? Struggling, paycheck to paycheck. Thank you. That's the best way of putting it. Fish to other fish, right? In terms of fish, right? He was not. He had some savings. And so we know from the story that what has happened is that the rulers go to the disciples and are asking them to turn in Jesus, right? And so then it is Judas that does, and Judas does for 30 pieces of silver, which what Butterworth says is probably for Judas, that probably wasn't a lot of money. So Butterworth says, why did he do this? And he says, here's the part to look at. Judas wanted Jesus to simply trying to force Jesus to react. In other words, how could the demonstration be achieved unless someone played the role at this time? Judas was not a man who cooked up a ruthless scheme to betray Jesus for money. Rather, he tried to speed up the process of Jesus' mission and simply miscalculated what the mission was. It's another way of seeing it, right? It's just another way of seeing it. And so he calls the chapter In Defense of Judas. And what I think about is like seeing Judas through spiritual eyes, right? Releasing any condemnation, blame, pointing fingers, and just saying, hey, this is what Judas did, and we can see that through the spiritual eyes. Is there anyone in your life you can do that with right here, right now? Anybody? Even on the world, national, right? Can we just say people are here playing out roles? They're playing out roles. Something else that Butterworth says in this chapter that ever since I read it, I held on to this. Some people are concealing their good, right? It's not that anyone is trying to absolutely do something evil. It's that they are working from what they have and perhaps in the way concealing their good. That's a hard one, right? But that's the practice. That's the absolute practice. Okay, so he says, there is something of Judas in you and me, and it is a very real influence in our lives. We believe in the things of the Spirit, but we desire the things of the flesh. Though we are all divine in potential, yet we often act the part of our humanity. We frustrate our potentialities. I'm going to say that again. We frustrate our potentialities. We conceal our innate goodness. Thus, we betray the Christ for the gratification of the human desires. As a poet once said, sole root of sin in thee is not to know thy divinity. Wow. The sole root is just not to know the divinity, right? We're here to see through spiritual eyes. That's the challenge. That's the practice. Whew. Just that. Thank you, Heather. Just that. That's easy. That's easy. Y'all are here for the master class, right? Not for introductory. You're doing the master work. Okay, so the great demonstration. Rather than focus on Jesus' crucifixion and death, Butterworth asks us to get curious about the empty tomb. What does the empty tomb mean? He writes, it must mean that there is something eternal about life that can transcend even death. And that the chain reaction of Jesus' greatest discovery those many years before triggered the cells of his body so that death was swallowed up in victory. I'm looking at you, Laura. We've had discussions about this. Thank you. I thought about you when I read this. Butterworth is asking us to see Easter not as a passport to another world, but rather it is a quality of perception for this one. That's huge, right? A quality of perception for this one. Again, through spiritual eyes. Through spiritual eyes. Oh, okay, what else does he write? It is not just a day to recall how Jesus rose from the dead. It is a time to take a new look at ourselves and to contemplate the divinity in us, the innate potential. It is a time to remember that overcoming is always possible, and it is our very potential. Overcoming is always possible, and it is our very potential. So why discuss Easter today? Of course, because Butterworth has it. Yes, that's one thing. But how about the other piece is that we are an Easter people. We are an Easter people. We believe in the resurrection. We believe that we can overcome. We believe that we have this innate potential. It was not just in Jesus. He showed us it's in every single one of us. Isn't that beautiful? We can overcome whatever difficulties that we see. Every single bit of it. The other thing that I was thinking about is like today is Dia de los Muertos. Did y'all know that? Yes, it's Dia de los Muertos. I'm sorry I'm not in any kind of garb or anything. I'll do better about that. But Dia de los Muertos, if you don't know, it is celebrated in Latin American countries, Mexico being one of them. It's celebrated here in our country by those who have descendencia. I can't think of how to say that, which is I'm not actually descendant. Spanish words don't always just come out like that. But anyway, descendencia. And it's the idea of celebrating our ancestors. And it's idea of even just poking fun at death. It's knowing that death is just as very much here as life is. Isn't that beautiful? And so here we are, ancestors and inheritors of Jesus, celebrating him and celebrating that his consciousness of love, of goodness, of oneness is within all of us. So let us celebrate that today and every day, right? We are those inheritors. I did want to say more, and that is, so Butterworth asks that we see Easter has happening against the backdrop of his teachings. So what are his teachings? Everyone is divine. Everyone is divine. Life is for living, not dying. Life is lived from within out. Life is lived from within out. And there is great depth to the life within you. There is great depth to the life within you. He says, this is the point of the Easter story. This is the point of the resurrection. It is a story of overcoming. It is here to remind us that every day we can demonstrate our divine potential, every single day. So, why do these stories matter? With the story of Judas, I'm reminded of my ego's desire to condemn, to judge, to criticize. And I know that when I do that, I'm frustrating my own potential. I'm frustrating my growth and my own transformation. With the story of Jesus and the Easter event, he's saying, please focus on that. Focus on the resurrection. Because what Jesus demonstrated in the resurrection is that the life of God is indestructible, changeless, and eternal, not just for himself, but for you and me. So I want to conclude this, how he ends his chapter. He says, you are divine. no matter what you have thought of yourself, no matter what you have done in your life or with it, no matter how limited your experiences seem to be, you are divine. Like the prodigal son, you may have been living off in the far country. You may have come to know want in the form of obstacles, handicaps, or inharmonious experiences. You must wake up. You must realize the depth of your own divine potential. How does that feel? Right? Yummy. Delicious. That's another word, right? Because for me, life is delicious. So we're here to commit to that, right? We are here to commit to live and move in that oneness. We're here to commit to live through our spiritual eyes. Amen.